Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the North Carolina Museum of Art. I'm Sean Burris, the curator of Judaic art, and I want to thank you all for joining us today for the museum's second annual Holocaust Remembrance Day concert. Please take a moment to silence your cell phones and join us in remembering as we hear this special program. Oliver Sacks said that music can evoke worlds very different from the personal, remembered worlds of events and people and places that we have known. And today we are here to do just that. Our program today features an early Schoenberg piece, Verklärte Nacht, that evokes a world that was lost. Based on a romantic poem of the same name by the German poet Richard Diemel, Verklärte Nacht was composed in 1899 during a golden age for Jewish culture in Germany, a time of great cultural exchange, experimentation, and innovation. It was for this innovation that Schoenberg would eventually be labeled a degenerate composer by the Nazis, flee to the United States, and spend the rest of his life in Los Angeles. Our second piece, Different Trains, was composed by Steve Reich in 1988 and evokes the world at its worst. It asks us to relive and to reconsider our own relationship to the Holocaust and distance from it. Is it worlds apart, or are we closer than ever? 5 minutes will take between these two pieces to allow a transition. The first piece is a sextet and the second is a quartet. So if you need to take a pause, the Verklärte Nacht is about half an hour. If you need to go use the restroom, take a pause, stand up for a second, we'll have a very short intermission between the pieces. Now, a few thank yous before we begin. First, I want to thank the sponsors of the North Carolina Museum of Art's Initiative for Jewish Art and Culture, many of whom are here today and whose annual support makes possible incredible and impactful programs like today's. I also want to thank our musicians, Jacqueline Wolborsky, who partnered with the museum to develop and lead this program, and Jennifer Curtis, Sam Gold, Nate Leyland, Amy Mason, and Caroline Stinson, who make up today's sextet and then quartet. And I want to thank Harry Osborne for providing critical support for the audio. Lastly, I want to thank you all for joining us today and taking part in this collective and musical act of remembrance. And for all of you, I do want to mention that today's program is not the only statewide event commemorating the Holocaust. At 3 o'clock on NC State's campus, there will be a panel discussion on Holocaust education followed by a candle lighting ceremony. And there are some flyers back with the programs if you didn't get one when you pick it up, just down the road. And you'll have time to join that as well if you'd like. For now, without further ado, please join me in welcoming the artists.
so happy to be with you today. I'm Jackie Wolborsky. I am here with my lovely colleagues, Jen Curtis, Sam Gold. You saw Amy and Carrie Stinson earlier, Amy Mason and Carrie Stinson, and Nate Leyland and Sam Gold. And a special thanks to Sean and the museum for putting this together. And a hand, please, for Bo Osborne, our sound technician. Thank you so much. This is such an honor. So the second half of this concert brings us from the romantic, expressionistic world of Verklärte Nacht that you just heard to minimalism, which is basically the opposite. This was this was the world of Steve Reich when he wrote our next piece, Different Trains. It was written in 1988, less than 19 years later. Reich tells us that the idea of different trains comes from his childhood after his parents were separated. His mom moved to LA and his father was still living in New York, and he would take a train ride as early as age 1 all the way from New York to visit his mom in LA with his governess, and the trip would take 4 days. Later, he looked back at this time when he was asked to compose a piece, and he wonders, being Jewish himself, how different the train ride would have been for him if he had been living in Europe as a Jewish child during the Holocaust. So this train journey would have been very different, as the people during the Holocaust were being transported on what were cattle cars, most of the time to their deaths in the concentration camps. Different Trains is written for string quartet and pre-recorded performance tape. So the piece is divided into 3 parts without pause. In the first part, you'll hear small recorded speech samples, and they are recorded interviews with Reich's government, who accompanied him on the train trips, a retired Pullman porter who used to ride the train between New York and LA. The second part is about World War II in Europe. You will hear sirens and 3 voices of Holocaust survivors, Rachela, Paul, and Rachel. The third part is when the war is over, and you will hear the survivors again, accompanied by the train sounds you heard during the first part. There are also 3 other string quartets on the pre-recorded tape created by the Kronos Quartet. So the strings will be playing the melodic component. So for instance, you'll hear the voice say, "From Chicago," and then you'll hear, Sam, can you do it? "From Chicago." Yes. So you'll hear the strings emulating what is happening in the speech. So you'll hear this, and look in your program to see the transcript of what the recordings are, so you can kind of follow along, because it's sometimes hard to hear. So Steve Reich claims Different Trains to be one of the best pieces he ever wrote. The way to listen to this piece is to just let us take you on a train ride. The music consists of repetition that is supposed to transport you to the repetitive sounds of being on a train. So zoom out, let go, and get into his zone. Steve Reich's innovative style of composition, particularly his use of minimalist techniques, has had a profound impact on many contemporary composers and musicians. He has influenced classical composers such as Philip Glass and John Adams, as well as pop, rock, and electronic artists like David Bowie, Radiohead, and Bjork. They all acknowledge Steve Reich's contributions and influence on their music. Reich is considered one of the most influential living composers, having altered the direction of music history. Along with the music, kind of as a guide, we have used visual artwork from the museum's collection to help you decipher the 3 parts of the piece. So the first part is accompanied by a work of Anselm Kiefer, also created in the 1980s. The second part, you will see Orange Outline by Franz Klein, whose works often respond to the atrocities of the Holocaust. And the third part is accompanied by a piece by Frank Stella, who is an artist extremely moved by Jewish culture and the Holocaust. Finally, I'd like to introduce the most important figures in this concert, which are this violin and bow that I have the great honor and privilege to play. This belongs to Tony Morcos, who is right here with us today. It was the violin of his late great aunt, Natasha Wilczynski. Natasha played this violin in the great concert halls throughout Munich, Germany, with her pianist sister and Tony's grandmother, Greta Wilczynski, before the Nuremberg laws were passed in 1935. With the rise of Nazi rule, Natasha fled Munich to Italy and then ended up being deported to France in 1938. She was arrested there and ultimately sent to Auschwitz in 1942, where she was murdered. She had left the violin with her brother in Strasbourg, France, before her arrest, and through a series of events, it ended up here in Raleigh with Tony. She lives on through this violin and the beautiful voice it produces. So now, Steve Reich's Different Trains. Please enjoy the ride.
Chicago, from Chicago, from Chicago, from Chicago to New York, from Chicago to New York, from Chicago, from Chicago, from Chicago to New York. From Chicago to New York, from Chicago to New York, from Chicago to New York, from Chicago. One of the fastest trains. One of the fastest trains. Fastest train. One of the fastest train, 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 fastest train. One of the fastest train. One of the fastest train, fastest train. One of the fastest train. One of the fastest train, fastest train. One of the fastest train. One of the fastest train, fastest train. One of the fastest train. One of the fastest train, fastest train. One of the fastest train. One of the fastest train, fastest train. One of the fastest train. One of the fastest train, fastest train. One of the fastest train.
The crack train from New York. The crack train from New York. The crack train from New York. The crack train from New York, 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 New York. The crack train from New York. The crack train from New York, New York. The crack train from New York. The crack train from New York, New York. The crack train from New York. The crack train from New York, New York. The crack train from New York. The crack train from New York, New York. The crack train from New York. From New York to Los Angeles. 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 From New York. From New York to Los Angeles. From New York. From New York to Los Angeles. From New York. From New York to Los Angeles. From New York. From New York to Los Angeles. From New York. From New York to Los Angeles. From New York. New York. From New York to Los Angeles. From New York. New York. From New York to Los Angeles. From New York. New York. From New York to Los Angeles. From New York. New York. From New York to Los Angeles. From New York. New York. From New York to Los Angeles. From New York. New York.
Different trains every day. Different trains. 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 From Chicago. From Chicago. From Chicago to New York. From Chicago to New York. From Chicago. From Chicago. From Chicago to New York. From Chicago to New York. From Chicago to New York. From Chicago. From Chicago to New York. From Chicago in 1939. In 1939. In 1939. In 1939. In 1939. In 1939. 39. In 1939. 39. In 1939. 39. In 1939. 39. In 1939, 39. In 1939. In 1939, 39. In 1939, 39. In 1939. 1939. 1939. 1939, 39. 1939, 39, 1939. 1939, 39, 1939, 1939, 1939, 1939, 1939, 1939, 1939, 1939, 1939, 1940. 1940. 1940, 40. 1940. 1940, 40. 1940. 1940, 40. 1940, 40. 1940, 40. 1940, 1940, 40. 1940, 1940, 40. 1940, 1941. 1941. 1941, 41. 1941.
1941, 41, 1941, 1941, 41, 1941, 1941.
1941, I guess it must have been. 1941, 41, I guess it must have been. 1941, 41, I guess it must have been. 1941, I guess it must have been. 1941, 41, I guess it must have been. 1941, I guess it must have been.
1940, 1940, 1940, 1940, 1940, 1940, 1940, on my birthday. Walked into Holland.
Germans invaded Hungary. I was in second grade. I had a teacher. A very tall man. His hair was completely plastered smooth. Very tall man. His hair was completely plastered smooth. Very tall man. He said, "Black crows. Black crows," he said, "black crows invaded our country." He said, "Black crows invaded our country many years ago." And he pointed right at me, pointed right at me.
No more school. No more school. No more school. No more school. Let's go away. Let's go away. Let's go away.
She said, "Quick, go." She said, "Quick." She said, "Quick." She said, "Quick, go. Quick, go." And he said, "Don't breathe." And he said, "Don't breathe." And he said, "Don't." He said, "Don't breathe." And he said, "Don't breathe." And he said, "Don't breathe." And he said, "Don't." He said, "Don't breathe."
Into the scatterwagon. Into the scatterwagon. For 4 days and 4 nights. For 4 days and 4 nights. And then we went through these strange sounding names.
strange sounding. And then we went through these strange sounding names. Polish. Polish names. Lots of cattle wagons there. Lots of cattle wagons. Lots of cattle wagons there. They were loaded with people. They were loaded with people. They shaved us. They shaved us. They tattooed a number on our arm. They tattooed a number on our arm. Flames going up in the sky. Flames going up in the sky. It was smoking. It was smoking going up in the sky. Flames going up in the sky. It was smoking. It was smoking. Going up in the sky. It was smoking, it was smoking.
And
stopped singing, they said, more, more. And when she stopped singing, they said, more, more, and they applauded.